Good morning and welcome everybody to today's webinar. My name is Georgina Skolko and I am the Marketing Manager at Data Conversion Laboratory. I'm going to be your moderator today. Before we get started, I want to let you know we will have time at the end for questions, so please add your questions in the chat area as they come to mind. If we don't have time to answer them all, we will make them available on your site. For those of you who are not familiar with DCL, Data Conversion Laboratory, we convert and organize content to create electronic documents, populate databases, publish on the web, and basically get it ready for tomorrow's technology. DCL's services help you refine your document conversion strategy, identify document redundancy, extract metadata, and transform legacy and future documents for real needs today and in the future. DCL serves a broad client base spanning all industries. This morning we are thrilled to introduce Dr. JoAnn Hackos. Many of you are already familiar with her from previous webinars. Dr. Hackos is president of Comtech Services, a content management and information design firm based in Denver, Colorado, which she founded in 1978. She is director of the Center for Information Development Management, CIDM, a membership organization focused on content management and information development best practices. Dr. Hackos and colleagues are called upon by corporate executives worldwide to consult on strategies for content management, development, and organizational management, product interface design, customer studies, web and traditional information architecture, and tools and technology selection and implementation. For more than 33 years, Dr. Hackos has addressed audiences internationally on subjects ranging from content management, project management, effective interfaces and information, minimal information products, usability testing, and online and web-based information to managing the information design and development process. Her workshops are dedicated to enhancing the practices and products that will best promote customer satisfaction. JoAnn is a fellow and past president of the International Society for Technical Communications, STC. We will also have as a panelist this morning our own Linda Marone, Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Data Conversion Laboratory. So without further ado, I'd like to present Dr. Hackos, who will discuss abandoning our legacy systems, knowing when we need change. Thank you, and over to you, JoAnn.
Okay, Georgina, I'm trying to get the screens to look right. I don't know what you're seeing right now, but would you give me some feedback?
I'm seeing a very nice screen. I'm seeing...
We're having problems with the screen. Okay, looks like people are saying that things are better.
Yeah, things look okay to me.
Okay, I'm going to try a few other things yet, like that. Okay, so I think I'm not using the actual slideshow system, so you'll have to
okay.
on this because it's not working correctly. But thank you for the introduction. I do want to get us started, so I'm going to move to the presentation here. What we want to talk about today is really looking around at our organizations and saying, are we doing the kinds of things that we should be doing to meet the really rapidly changing trends in the industry? You know, we're seeing, I'm sure all of you are seeing that the demand for new media, new ways of delivering content to customers. You know, we're hearing more and more about video presentations. We're hearing about mobile devices. We're hearing about topic-based delivery, you know, dynamic publishing. So many things are changing in the way our customers are expecting us to deliver information today, that we really need to look around and say, are we making the changes internally that we really need to make? Is that really working out? Are we using legacy systems that we would be much better replacing, despite the cost, replacing with something that's going to be more effective? So that's really the theme that I want to pursue today. I'll go back to a quote I've used before, and I think this is kind of interesting. It's Henry Ford from over 100 years ago. I hope most of you know, depending on where you're from, Henry Ford was the developer of the Ford motor car, and here's a picture of Henry in his original Model T Ford, or one of the early Fords. But probably more importantly, he was also an entrepreneur and the developer of the assembly line. And he had an interesting statement that I've quoted in the past. And it's this one: if you need a machine and you don't buy it, then you'll ultimately find that you have paid for it and don't have it. Well, what is he getting at here? He said, you know, we need technology, we need new processes, we need new ways of doing things. But many times we look back and say, well, we've got this big investment in the old systems and everybody already knows how to use them, and it would be costly to make a change. What Ford is saying is that if you don't buy something you really do need, if you don't make that investment now, you'll find out that it's cost you the same amount over the years to do without that it would have cost you if you invested in this in the first place. And you've spent all the money and you still do not have the advancements in technology and in process and in training people that you really need to have in place. And I think that's the major message that we want to talk about today as you think about how this all comes together. Focusing on the goals really does represent a lot of the thoughts, right? Things that, as Ford says, another good quote, obstacles that are frightful, things when you see when you take your eyes off the goal. You know, what are we really trying to do? And we see here Henry Ford and Thomas Edison, you know, both of them incredible entrepreneurs. And, you know, 100 years later, Steve Jobs also focusing on the goal and overcoming obstacles. And a lot of those obstacles, I think, that are in front of us these days as information developers, technical communicators, are the holdovers of past practices. So we want to say, what are the things that we really need to think about as we begin to change or think about change? Well, one of the difficulties I think organizations have, and I think especially those of us who do not come from a financial perspective in our organizations, is this issue that is known as sunk cost. Sunk cost is a really important financial perspective to have. The sunk cost trap is the notion that we've got to protect earlier choices that we made, earlier investments we've made. Let's say, for example, we know of one organization that is, some years ago purchased a publishing solution. That publishing solution has not kept up with their recent demands. It is expensive to maintain, expensive to try to keep working. It keeps getting patched up. If this sounds like your water heater or your washing machine, you know what I'm talking about. It's expensive to keep up, but everyone keeps saying, oh, but we already spent all that money. We have this investment. We can't really get rid of it. We just have to keep, putting up with this expensive, clunky operation that we have in place. Well, that's what we call the sunk cost trap. And when you do a real good analysis of the the return on investment and the business costs of moving in new directions, what you've really got to know that is that the financial people tell us that we've got to ignore the sunk cost. We've got to ignore not only what it cost us to put those old systems in place, but also, the training that we've already invested and the peace of mind maybe that we've already invested in something that works not very well, but it does seem to work. And really, consider that that's not the goal. That's not what we're trying to accomplish. We're not trying to hang on. So we've really got to think about, a new way of thinking about what we really need. Okay, I'm getting some messages from people. I hope this, JoAnn, you're seeing this clearly now. Okay, and I hope the volume is okay as well.
Yes, I'm seeing everything clearly, and the volume is okay for me.
All right. Okay, good. Here's what I want us to evaluate today. We're not going to talk about all of the sunk costs, but two in particular. One of them, of course, is out-of-date technology. And I know many of you are already moving to new technology or aware that you need to change, that the technology is now out of date. But I think that we need to be quite comprehensive in looking at that. And then we want to talk about out-of-date practices, because these two things go together. When we're evaluating legacy systems, we've got to really focus on, what are the practices that we can't avoid. So these are the things, we really want to look at. Evaluating legacy technology means, looking at the traditions of the solutions that we use today. Let's take desktop publishing, for example. Desktop publishing started in the early 80s. And not much has changed. If you're using Microsoft Word to create content, there might be a few bells and whistles attached, but it pretty much works the same way as it did in the early 80s. It's not doing too much for you anymore today. You might have a document management system in place, or a file server with a system to do some version control. But neither of these kinds of systems will understand XML or will support you in moving to a single sourcing environment. Out-of-date practices, you might be part of an organization, which we still see a lot, that lacks leadership in information development. Basically, it's a lot of individual contributors working for different engineering groups without leadership that really can move to collectively move you to a new practice. Everyone works independently, and because they're used to it, they also like working independently, even though to solve problems, to solve the kinds of problems today, to meet the challenges of providing information for customers, means that we've got to work collectively, not independently. We've got to get the points of view of lots of people in our organizations. And also, you hear that customers want better content, but you don't know how to get there. How do I get from what we're doing now, and how do I deal with the pressure of meeting deadlines for the existing material and put that effectively alongside the requirements that customers are asking us to produce different information all together. So just, how do we do those things? How do we evaluate this legacy and really make good decisions? Okay, so evaluating legacy technology. What we've been engaged in recently is really looking at a lot of legacy systems, going in and doing evaluations of usually older, proprietary, homegrown technology applications that really are providing creating a barrier to moving ahead. And the organizations that are asking for this evaluation recognize that it's a barrier for moving ahead. But they are having a hard time with the sunk costs. They're having a hard time saying, well, we shouldn't do this anymore, but we're afraid. We're afraid of the cost of the change. We're afraid of doing something new. So what are the things that you need to look at about your existing environment, your existing technologies? And I've made a list of those on this slide, right? The reuse mechanisms that are part of the data model, right? The ability to reuse content in multiple places, to replace existing content with new content, with the drop of a key ref. All of those reuse mechanisms need to be supported in giving you the flexibility that you need to move ahead. And what that means in terms of content management systems is that they have a really robust and very deep and effective technology to support the maintenance of links, because all of this reuse is all about linking. If you look at a traditional document management system, what you'll find is that links don't exist. There is no linking. There is no way to link one blob of text to another blob of text because they're only blobs. We know that we need to support new ways of helping our users find information and also helping our writers find information. This area is something that we call faceted search. It's search supported by metadata. To be able to say, give me the topics that are written at this time by this person and on this subject. A really important way of organizing our information and being able to effectively plan for the next iteration without duplicating content or using really ineffective methods of not using content. We need to therefore, in order to facilitate search mechanisms like faceted search, we need to manage metadata effectively. We need to manage metadata so that it occurs within topics so that we can search on those, and we need to manage metadata within our content management environments, and we need to do that effectively. We need to look at versioning capabilities because simple versioning is important and fine. It says, you've created a new version and it stores previous versions of the content, and often it'll tell you what changed from one version to another. But we're also seeing requirements to branch content to when we have more than one release going on simultaneously. We can branch that content so that we're sure that the slight differences between interim releases are accommodated, and then we need to merge them back together again so that we have a new organized version moving forward. And we need systems that help support that. We need something called a unique ID. If you've ever had the problem in traditional systems like Unstructured FrameMaker of moving your content from one folder to another and then thereby losing all of the links to that when you're trying to create output, you know about the concept of unique IDs. Content management systems that are based upon databases have unique IDs for every object in that database, which means that there is no overlapping and there is no moving, and moving things around really doesn't affect what you're going to produce at the end. We know that systems also need to support the activities that we're doing, from translation management through publishing, authoring, publishing, reporting out results, reporting out measurements and metrics about how well we're doing. We need to be able to maintain repositories so that we don't, say, for instance, inadvertently delete everything that is in all of our language, our translated target languages, because someone deleted a topic in the source language that shouldn't have been deleted. We need good integration with a variety of authoring systems, editing systems, so that we can support both the professional authors and the casual contributors. And we need to be able to maintain all of those links to images that we need throughout our information. So this is just a short list of the evaluation tools that we would look at as a way to effectively publish, use technology to publish our information, create and publish our information in the future. So what is a simple case of this, right? If I take something simple about technologies, here are my expectations just about one aspect, and that aspect is what we call link management. We want to assume that we have no broken links ever in any language. Not ever. Nothing happens. There is no such thing as a broken link. Link source and translations means never having to translate content more than once, or even sending it out for translation more than once. Being able to do that effectively. Links mean enabling the reuse of standard content everywhere. You know about, if you've been researching the data content model, you know about the content reference capability. I can store content once and reuse it in context wherever it's needed. Links enable content reuse at all levels, therefore, and we need to have systems that really maintain links and maintain those links in a very vibrant and effective way. They allow good linking in DITA 1.2 functionality, like the keyref and con-keyref allow variables to be defined at publishing time, and those variables to be switched out as needed. And linking also that operates according to a standard that's an X-Link standard, the standard that is part of the OASIS family of standards. So just something simple like that to say, does what I have in place now do all these things? And that's just one aspect of a sort of a really good, solid technology analysis and evaluation. Those are the kinds of things we might be looking for. Now, someone asked about what about reviewing, and I agree that the capability of electronic review, of sharing content that needs to be reviewed and approved, of seeing other people's comments on that content at the same time, so that if I'm a reviewer, I don't have to say the same thing 3 people have already said about a document. That becomes an important part of what we want to do going forward. Okay, so is your technology up to speed? Change ahead, right, means that are you aware of what a new technology could do for you? Are you holding back because you have a commitment to the legacy systems you have in place, the legacy technology you have in place? Are you having a tough time convincing others that it's time to change? What are you doing today? What you're doing today costs nothing, or so you think, right? There's my sunk costs operation. What are you losing by not moving ahead? So remember Henry Ford, you know, it's over 100 years and we still are not learning this lesson. If we need something and we don't buy it, we will have paid for it and we still won't have it. Okay, now I'm going to go into my second area, and that is evaluating practices. Now, I think a lot of you know that we've been performing information process maturity studies for organizations for more than 20 years now. And these are the 10 characteristics that we look at in a well-managed organization, in one that is going to be able to handle the challenges of the current trends and the future trends of making information much more effective, dynamic, arriving at the time when it's really needed. So I'll just briefly talk a little bit about each of these. Centralized decision making. One of the things we really do see is that without central leadership in information development, it's really difficult, if not impossible, to make any kind of coordinated change. You can, as an individual, change something about what you're doing, but you certainly can invest in a content management system without people who come together. So when we look at organizational patterns, and we see these patterns where remaining where individual writers work for different engineering groups and there is no centralized management, we see that dominance of the legacy systems in place. So I think that centralized management is one of the cornerstones of really being able to move ahead, both in technology evaluation and in best practices. Quality management means that we're doing all of the things that we need to do to maintain quality, right? We're doing editorial reviews of our content. We're maybe introducing technologies to help with those editorial reviews, things like quality management checkers, the much more sophisticated grammar and spelling checkers that actually look at our use of individual words, that make sure that we're writing in simplified English, for example. Quality management can be very well supported by a variety of technology today. But it also just does need people. Somebody's got to define what the rules are. And we still need, somebody, real pair of eyes, a skilled pair of eyes, looking at material before it leaves our control. Quality management also means having good approval processes, making sure that content is reviewed, content in all languages is reviewed, and I know how challenging that can be to get reviewers in lots of countries to review translated versions of our content. The third characteristic is good project planning, estimating, and tracking. That we're putting together good project plans, especially for these complicated projects where we want to have content that is developed by a team, that is shared among deliverables, that is well estimated so that we know we have the right staffing to produce it, that we're not duplicating content, that we're not writing things over again, or we're not updating the same thing in multiple places, and then we have the project planning in place to make sure we know what we're doing as we go into a project, to estimate it effectively, and then to track it to find out, are we doing what we said we would do? That's the goal, right? Are we doing those things effectively? Is that part of your system? Is part of your practices? Are we hiring the right people to do these kinds of new jobs? I'm working on an article now for the February issue of Best Practices, and it's about teamwork. It's about a practice called teaming. And one of the things I keep encountering and reading about this is the type of behaviors that we need among our information developers, and whether we're hiring the right people for the job goes beyond what their technical skill is or their basic writing ability, but their ability to hold their own in conversations with developers and to participate actively and effectively in agile development teams and all of those things that I think you can look at. Do we provide training opportunities for our staff? Are we doing the right things in terms of training people to use new technologies, to know how to interact effectively with customers, to gather customer information, to write with a new voice, a new, more friendly, less stuffy technical voice, something that the folks at Microsoft are doing that I'm hoping to get them to come and talk about soon in a webinar. Are we designing our information effectively for the new trends, for the new environment in which that information needs to move? Are we engaging effectively with our customers? Do we have customer forums? Do we hold focus groups? Have we visited customer sites? Have we seen what they do? Have we talked to them and understood what their real needs are? Not by asking them what they want us to write in documentation, but helping us understand what their day-to-day interactions with the products that we support is like. Are we adequately controlling costs? Remember, that's technology discussion. It often means spending money. Are we controlling the costs in what we're doing now so that we can show, yes, we're increasing productivity, or we are doing the best we can with the old technologies, but we could do so much better and so much more if we had better tools to work with. Well, that's part of your cost control conversation. It also means value control. Do people in the organization, especially senior management, lack a sense of the value that you might be adding to the organization, especially as you move to these new ways of disseminating information? The ninth one says, are you collaborating effectively? Remember that teaming process that I'm thinking about. That means really good collaboration skills, being able to responsibly work as part of a team, to be valued by others, so that your point of view is respected and what you say carries as much weight as anyone else. And then finally, the last characteristic of the IPMM is change management. Do we work in organizations, and do we lead organizations that handle change effectively, that are prepared when a new technology is in place, not to just simply dump it on people and expect them by some miracle to use it effectively? I'm often discouraged by the approaches that seem to be supported by a lot of product vendors who say, well, just buy our new system and everything will change. And then what you find out is that nothing's changed because no one knows what to do. Or they are using all this new technology to do exactly what they've done in the past. In a recent survey that we ran and analyzed, I was surprised to find that a very high percentage of people using the data standard are only using conditional processing rather than all the other things that the system is capable of doing for you. And it seems to me that means that those organizations, those people in those organizations, are really using XML data as if it were unstructured FrameMaker, doing the same thing with conditional publishing that they did before. So somebody's forgotten about change management in there someplace. It's very, very interesting to see what the issues could be. Whoops. Okay, so let's take something simple, one aspect of this, and that's collaboration. You have team members who are or need to be collaborating with product developers. And you need to be sure that that collaboration is effective. It's not just taking orders. Nobody wants to be the secretary to the team. You want to be a full member. Your collaborative teams are coming up with innovative ideas. You're doing things right. Shared content is increasing exponentially. All of those plans you had to single source are working, and people are sharing content, and it's effective, and all of the things that you were hoping happened in sharing content are happening. Your team is you have a team managing the information architecture, or a person managing the information architecture, depending upon the size, and people are really actively learning from one another. That They're sharing ideas, they're sharing insights, they're sharing knowledge about the product, they're sharing knowledge about the customer. What I don't want to see is something I've run into recently in some of our workshops where one group in a company has done a customer study and has found out some really interesting things and has made some changes in their content, and they have never, ever communicated that information to anybody else in the organization. So everyone else is unaware of what those changes are, is unaware of what this group has learned. In part, that's a consequence of a decentralized group, a distributed group, because in this case, the teams were organizationally unrelated to one another, but it meant that their collaborative behaviors were really lacking and really had a negative effect on the ability of the others in the organization to learn. To bring your knowledge, to bring your skills, to bring your expertise to play in a collaborative environment with the people who need to know what you know and also who know things that you need to know as well. So we're suggesting to people to form things like content councils, where every part of the organization that contributes content comes together and works as a team to better meet information needs of the customers. And that might include the service and support personnel, the training people, the marketing communications people, all these people creating content and making sure that the same message is going out and content is being shared effectively. That's all about our view of collaboration going forward. Okay, so change ahead. Are your practices up to speed? How do you measure up with other similar organizations? Well, looking at the IPMM and maybe doing an IPMM study in your organization may help you learn that, and may help you use that information, which we see in many cases effectively with senior management. If you're doing an assessment, a legacy assessment of practices with the agreement of senior management, then when you report, when you get the reports, you go back to senior management and say, hey, you paid to do this. Here are the things we need to do to learn, to change and learn effectively. I've seen that work so well, amazingly well in organizations. In one case, we had a CEO who would go around and say that my golfing friends tell me we have the worst documentation in the industry. And nothing that the publications manager or the information developers could do could change his mind. I think his golfing friends were all from the 1950s. And when we did the IPMM study, we said, and we reported to the CEO and to the executive committee, he said, these are the things that your group is doing that are very, very effective. It changed his point of view for the first time ever. And that, that has a tremendous effect on the organization. So ask yourself, are your legacy practices holding you back from demonstrating the value of your contributions to the organization? At the Best Practices Conference in September, we heard a really compelling story from Ben Jackson, who is VP of User Assistance at Juniper Networks. And that is that he's been successful in demonstrating the value of the contributions of information developers. But what he's had to do in order to impress management that that value is there is he's had to modernize the practices in the organization. That's critical. Okay, so Linda, you're going to talk a little bit about this third wheel, right? Or third leg of the stool. So it stands up. And talk about the evaluation of legacy content.
Okay, well, it seems to be a primary issue for many companies when they are looking to make a change or move within their organization. So evaluating that content can be quite an arduous task because oftentimes it is appeared to be as a single entity, wherein reality, there are various components that need to be considered. But when you look at it from the standpoint of thinking about innovation and your content helping you move there, and JoAnn, you're going to have to move the slides for me, by the way. But as you begin to consider looking across your organization as to, what are the requirements? What are you trying to achieve? How is your content currently supporting you? How is it currently hindering you, which we will discuss? Is it really accurate as it needs to be? Can it be used for searchability, for future authoring, for conforming to DITA or whatever you might need to support your particular initiatives? So looking at it also from the standpoint of priority, what is important to the business overall? What is important to the business long term? What might be the pieces of the content that need to be moved immediately? What could potentially sit back? So just from the standpoint of everything that JoAnn has been addressing so far, let's look at taking it and putting it into a very simple context. So you want to keep your content footprint under control. How do you do that? You do that by making sure that it's clean and it is not written in a variety of different ways, and you're supporting all different types of the same exact content across your organization. Being able to support delivery to any particular audience through any channel, whether it be print, web, mobile, whatever it might be, and whatever future technology or channel there may be for you and your organization. The ability to syndicate content, this is a very, very important key element, because while we often think about our external marketplace and our customers and supporting them and moving content and making certain that they have the content they need to make buying decisions to help themselves use the information that you're providing, but we oftentimes neglect the fact that internal teams are spending countless dollars, countless hours trying to also use that same content, and for them it may not be quite as fluid. Obviously the cleanness and the consistency of the content we've already talked about, improving time to market. There's nothing worse for an engineer than the development of a product and not having the content that can support that product moving forward. Think of internal support teams that might have to rely on that content to answer customer calls and questions and so on and so forth. Managing translations more effectively. I mean, my goodness, today the world has become very small, but yet it's still very vast. And being able to provide the same level of content in different languages to support specific customers' needs is going to be critical. You can't do that without having your content set up in a very efficient manner. And most importantly, it's really about reducing the cost of content development and support. Looking at it from even before you get involved in the conversion is critical, but you want to look at setting up everything that you need to support your content moving forward from a future as well as a past perspective. Next. So I guess we now need to throw it back on all of you. Is your content redundant? Are you saying the same things in multiple ways throughout multiple channels and multiple processes? If so, you definitely need to correct that. You need to be able to find all of this redundancy. You need to be able to have an easier way of cleaning it up and then moving it into the best practices that really best suit the needs of all of your customers, both internal and external. Are your processes inefficient? I can almost guarantee you that they are. I can't think of a meeting that I've sat in for the past however many years where we aren't finding significant inefficiencies that is frustrating everyone without barring anyone. It's just a major issue across some of even the largest organizations, and certainly those that are smaller and may have less resources to depend upon. And is your content ready to support your business drivers? It needs to be. You need to create an organization whereby your content is supporting everything else versus everything else trying to support your content. And by really flipping the thought process here, I think you could begin to imagine how much more effective you all can be at your jobs on a day-to-day basis if you start putting the content first and making decisions that the content can easily support, and making decisions for the content, obviously, that need to be supported. So I think that's about it, JoAnn, on my end.
Okay, thanks, Linda. So what we've talked about now are these three issues, right? Comparative technology assessments, information process maturity, and legacy content assessments. We think these are at least three parts of the three legs of the stool, giving us a nice stable starting point. And they're things that you need to ensure are in place or you can build effectively as you work to bring your information and your organization into alignment with business drivers and customer requirements. So I think these, we feel these are important things to start thinking about, and don't get stuck with the Model T. We need to be moving our organizations ahead, and we need to do that, I'm afraid, fairly quickly in order to be, I think, most effective in what we're doing. So we can help. These are lots of things I'm sure you're all familiar with that we do to help the community to move toward all of these things we've been discussing. And I think what we should do then, besides announcing some upcoming events that Linda and I are both engaged in, most of these, CMS Did in North America is coming up in April. The agenda is just about done and ready to go. We have a wonderful group of speakers talking about many of these same issues of best practices and best technology and best content. And that's what you learn. That's what you'll learn about. We have another webinar coming up in February on data analysis to improve your content, and then, of course, the set of workshops that are currently scheduled. So if we can, I think, Linda, if we can take some questions, and please, feel free to fill in the question box. And yes, there will be a copy of the presentation available as soon as we get the recording all in place. We'll have it both on the DCL and the CIDM and Comtech websites, so that you can get information about this and communicate it to others. Are there any questions?
I will reiterate. Hello, JoAnn. This is Georgina. I am not seeing any questions as yet from anyone. I don't know if that's a glitch in the system or not.
I think they're there, Georgina.
Okay, yeah, I am not. Unfortunately, I am. I now am seeing a few of them. Yes. Okay.
Okay, why don't we? I can start to address these, I guess.
Okay, that's fine. If you see them, you can read them and go right ahead.
Here's a really, really good question from Brian. We have upgraded our technology and converted content, but content still seems legacy. I found that it's sometimes easier to write from scratch, to rewrite from scratch. Yes, I know. That can be really quite true. Because if you feel, if the content is truly out of date, And I think, Linda, you see the same thing. You know, we see it in this, you know, the process of converting legacy content. We see some content that's in very good condition, and everybody seems to be happy with it. And other times you think, you know, where did this come from? Who put this content together? I recently had this discussion with one of the information architects for a team we were working with, and she said, "Oh, I think that content came from this company we bought." And I said, "Okay, that's all right." But it really is no longer working. You know, it really needs to be rethought. Now, those can be big efforts, of course, and expensive efforts. But, you know, go back to the sunk costs. Are you publishing out information that your customers don't need, don't want, don't need, don't use? There was one analysis of one of the major companies, you would immediately recognize its name, an analysis of their absolutely enormous database of content on their website. And that analysis showed that 95% of the content on that website had never been looked at by anyone. No one had ever clicked on it. No one had ever looked at it. So what they're doing now is restructuring, reauthoring, and actually removing content from the website. They're removing things because more gets in the way. The more stuff you have that nobody needs, the more it gets in the way of something people do need. So I agree with Brian. It's sometimes easier to rewrite from scratch. Linda, you want to comment?
Yeah, you know, it all goes back to really evaluating what you have before you get started. If the content was unusable before conversion, it's still going to be unusable after conversion. It's just going to be in a different format. So being able, I mean, one of the first things we advise is to do a full content audit. What do you have? What is still relevant? What is important long term? What might you need to keep in archive at least for future conversion or future use, and then go down from there. So now you have everything segregated by priority, by what's ready, what isn't, what's usable now, what may be usable in the future, and what you just simply don't need anymore. And sometimes, rather than rewriting all of it, it's a matter of just simply going in and tweaking, or, as I said, identifying, you know, errors that were present in the original content set, looking at how much of this stuff is really the same thing. It's just spoken differently, written differently, whatever the case might be, and getting that pulled back into a common format, and certainly in a more cleaned up version, and then going from there. But to proceed without doing a full audit, and it is one of the things that we advise our clients, and it's certainly one of the services that we provide. And it is a major, major cost saver, because we find many times we can cut down even the amount of content that needs to be converted by as much as, oh my gosh, we've even seen as much as 60%. So,
and then I want to point out that you have this wonderful tool that we've been using called Harmonizer.
Yes.
That can take thousands of files and tell you where things are either the same or are close to being the same, and really save you a huge amount of effort if you had to do it by hand.
Yeah, it's really step one. And from there, once you have stuff at least identified, then you can begin the audit process and really determine what makes sense, what doesn't, what's needed, what isn't, and where do we go from here. So yes, JoAnn, it's a very valuable tool.
Jim is asking about the what we mean by enterprise authored and customer authored content, and I think these are very good questions. The information development organizations, technical writing groups, are certainly not the only ones providing content to customers in an enterprise. Although sometimes you may not know that the content exists. The simplest case might be the training organization. Are you partnering with your training organization to ensure that you're right, you're telling this, you have the same message, and that you're not duplicating effort, which I think frequently happens. In some organizations, one I visited recently, the training courses, the instructor-led training, and now the e-learning, both make use of the documentation as the core source of information, rather than, oh, there's the bird clock going off. Give it a minute. I always know what time it is. My house finished. But, looking at content that's being authored by others in the organization, and is that being harmonized? Is that giving, is it redundant? Are you doing the same things that other people are doing better? Are there things that you can share, information that you can share? The second area is customer-authored content, and this is a tricky area. We are finding that in certain industries, especially regulated industries or people manufacturing things that are dangerous, it's not possible to have customers authoring content. But in so many other organizations it is, and it's happening. It's happening whether you like it or not, because if you try to go out to Google and search on some subject matter related to your product and see what other resources there are. I know organizations who have said, oh, our content is all locked up behind a firewall. You have to have authorization, permission to get to this content, and then they go find out that it's out on the internet because customers have posted it. Customers will author content. They will do it. And I think the issue is to bring that back into the fold, to make sure that that is properly curated, that it's not content that is incorrect or misleading or out of date, and that we see organizations actually assigning writers to monitor customer-created content, to enlist customers who are vetted, who have established their credentials in terms of accuracy and effectiveness, to enlist those customers in actually helping to produce content on the website, through wikis and other means, and really, making that an enterprise activity. We have a harmonizer question. Is it something that can be purchased, Linda, or is it a proprietary tool used by DCL?
It is a proprietary tool, JoAnn, and actually a service that we provide by using the tool. Depending on how much content you actually have and how often you're going to be running content through it, we certainly can discuss the possibility of a cloud version for your organization. But if you don't have a regular need, it really would be much. Yeah, if you're running it once, or you have, a few other data sets that might need to be run, you're much, much better off to just let us run it for you, and we'll provide you with a full service report and full analysis.
Yeah. There's a really interesting question from Andrea here. We're evaluating a new CMS, and your list of requirements is helpful. In fact, let's go back to that list of requirements. Right there. And she asks, what about reporting? This is a really interesting issue, because my view is a lot of content management systems, good ones, don't have all the reporting we'd like to see. We have a LinkedIn group for CIDM, which you're all welcome to join. And we recently, in that LinkedIn group, CIDM LinkedIn group, we started a subgroup on next generation requirements, which you're also welcome to join. It is a separate registration for the subgroup. But one of the topics that I started for discussion is about reporting requirements, and what you'll find there is a very comprehensive list that people have contributed to the kind of reporting we want in the future from the systems we're looking at, because none of them do everything we'd like to have. We want to know how many topics are used in multiple places. We want to know if our output exceeds our input. If we're reusing content effectively in the final delivery. Do we have 100 words in the repository and 200 words in the output from the same repository because of the reuse of content? We want to know how individuals are doing in their assignments. Are they making progress? Are they behind? Are they contributing? Are they up to speed? So take a look at that list. It's just really good, and you're welcome. Any of you are welcome to add to it, because what we're trying to do is to assemble some requirements that we're going to pass on to the vendors from our community to say this is the kind of thing we're looking for. Our content is good, but not in a DITA format. What is the best process to get it into a DITA DMS? I hope you meant CMS. Content Management System component. Here's the keyword. Component Content Management System, right? That one. The process, wow, is involved. It really does require, a kind of a roadmap to lay out what you need to do. Because it just is not you can certainly, DCL can do some of those conversions, but in order to be prepared for the conversion, you need to decide how you're going to use the DITA model, because nobody uses all of it. And it's a process we call information modeling. We offer workshops in how to do that, including the DITA Bootcamp. And you'll find on the Comtech website a DITA roadmap that may be of some help, just an easy-to-read, friendly version of the process that you might want to go through to move to a DITA content management environment. But really the first thing is to know about your legacy and what to do with it and what technologies will work best for you, and then what is that process that you're going to use to manage the change. How will people be educated? How will you make decisions about what you want to use of the DITA model and what you don't want to use? How will you communicate that with good authoring guidelines and getting all of that in place? So I'm hoping I'm answering that kind of question. We have probably another 5 minutes. Let me see if I can, let's see. Yeah, comment about the out-of-date content. Sherry says it's not only out-of-date content, but it was written under a completely different paradigm. It's a completely different point of view. And I think that's true. When I see content that has been well developed for a book process, expect the expectation. I remember a company we were working with in Italy some years ago, where the technical we were representing the customers at this meeting, and the customers were complaining that the documentation was not helpful for them. And we asked the writers what their expectation was of the customers understanding how to use the product, and they said, well, customers would be fine if they read through the entire manual twice. And I said, well, I think that your expectations are probably a bit high. But if we come from thinking about things in terms of threaded discussions, a book organization, of the expectation that people will continue reading and read a lot, doesn't match up much with the world as we're finding it today. Really not how things are working. Jim has one more question, I think. A question about faceted search. Yes, a taxonomy, a set of metadata that is really well thought through to help guide people to the right decisions when they're looking for the content they need, especially when there's more than one version of a particular kind of content. You know, am I getting to this website and finding mistakenly opening and following the instructions for a version, you know, a 1999 version of the product, because because that product has 1999 versions in existence and it's still on the website. So I know I'm using the most accurate and up-to-date content for my product. Can I find it by zeroing through a whole set of questions that lead me correctly to the right product, to the right version, to the right operating system, to the right whatever about that product, and gets me to the right information quickly? Sometimes those facets will guide a series of choices, right? Through a website. You know, you're guiding people through. You look at a website and it says, select the product. Or, you know, select the product category and then select the product and then select the specific product, and we'll lead you to that information first. Well, that's part of metadata. We work with well-structured metadata and taxonomies in websites all the time. They're just not on technical communication websites. If you're buying something from Land's End, you can go in and say, I only want the T-shirts for men, and I only want them in this size and this color. You know, you can. Those are all facets, metadata facets, that are being controlled in that content to let you navigate effectively through the content. So not only search, but also the faceted taxonomy that's guiding the design of the website itself. So that's interesting, and I think a very effective way to look at the direction you want to go. Okay, I think we're seeing a few people dropping off at this point. Linda, thank you so much for getting this all organized. Thank you, Georgina, for getting this all
thank you, JoAnn and Linda. Very informative session. And I'd like to thank everyone who is attending. This concludes today's broadcast. You can access the recorded version from the DCL webinar archive section. That's dclab.com. And I want you to invite all of you to our next webinar on January 24th at 1 p.m. EST, when we will have Jim Grasselman and Susan Mescan from Vesant, along with Linda Marone, answering your questions about ROI for a content management strategy. Thank you all for attending, and have a great day.